Here's your First Warn weather forecast first. Sponsored by Anderson Collision Center. Visit driveanderson.com.
Well, it is much more quiet out there this evening compared to what it was yesterday as we have high pressure building in. This will help keep our skies relatively clear here as we go through the night tonight. However, could end up with some areas of fog as that breezy wind begins to subside. Temperatures today with some sunshine made it back into the 50s, so climbing back up above average. Not quite record warmth, but still sitting above our average for the beginning of March. 53 right now in Rockford, 50 in Rochelle, 46 in DeKalb, and 51 our current temperature out in Freeport. We've had a northeasterly breeze anywhere from 10 to 20 miles per hour. Again, that wind will subside some here as we head through this evening. Temperatures dropping down through the 40s as we go through the night. Overnight lows back down around 30. We do have some rain showers to talk about by the end of the week. A look at that and another warm up too coming up in the First Warn forecast a little later.
Rockford police investigate an early morning shooting that injured 2 people. Officers say 1 man is in serious condition. Plus, the State Line nonprofit works to feed older adults. Organizers say their service goes beyond just providing meals. And new reports show a surge at Illinois polls. The rise in early voting has some election officials expecting a big primary turnout.
Live from WTVO 17. This is Eyewitness News at 5.
Good evening. I'm Mimi Murphy. David Greenberg is off today. 2 men are in the hospital after an early morning shooting. Around 1 a.m., Rockford police were called to Creekview Road for reports of shots fired. That's near Alpine Park. Officers say 2 men were taken to the hospital. 1 is expected to be okay. The other man was in serious condition. Rockford police are still investigating. A Scales Mound paraprofessional is in custody after police say she had a sexual relationship with a student. Alicia Deckard is charged with criminal sexual assault and aggravated criminal sexual abuse. The Daviess County State's attorney says Deckard was employed as a paraprofessional with a local school and engaged in a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old student. Deckard is currently being held in the county jail. 52 years ago, the federal government amended the Older Americans Act to include a nutrition program. Meals on Wheels across the country are addressing the food insecurity problems that still exist today. Taylor Castro learned how a state line agency is raising awareness, and Taylor, there's also a social aspect to this.
Yes, Mimi, older Americans are not only experiencing hunger, but also loneliness. That's why Scape Community Services Meals on Wheels program, we're joined by some special guests for today's deliveries. The Rockford Police and Fire Chiefs, RPS 205 Superintendent Ann Hammy from the Rockford Ice Hogs went on the ride-along this morning. While Meals on Wheels drivers are trained to do a wellness check each day, having someone like Hammy the Hog deliver meals added some extra fun. It's all in celebration of the National Meals on Wheels Save Lunch campaign. They want to ensure that organizations like Scape continue to receive funding from the Older Americans Act. Scape delivers 1,200 to 1,800 meals each day to homes in Winnebago, Boone, Ogle, and Lee counties.
Most of our clients are kind of stuck in their homes, right? They're stuck in their homes. We want to make sure that we provide them with not just a meal, but an opportunity to interact with somebody. Our driver comes every day, does a wellness check on them. What we want to do is make sure that seniors can age with dignity and independence. So anything we can do to further that, we're going to go ahead and do that.
Scape offers Meals on Wheels along with a range of other services. Seniors or caregivers can reach out for help. Mimi?
All right, thanks, Taylor. Voters across 15 states are heading to the polls to pick their presidential candidate. It's the most significant day for voters until Election Day in November. GOP candidate Nikki Haley urged her supporters in Texas to cast their votes, but polls say former President Donald Trump is leading Haley by 50 to 70%, depending on the state. President Biden is facing some opposition within his own party over his handling of the war in Gaza.
I voted uncommitted.
I think the Biden campaign really wants to nip this uncommitted voter in the bud.
There are also some high-stakes primaries happening for both House and Senate seats that could flip the balance of power in Congress. Early voting numbers appear to be stronger than usual in Illinois. 2,700 people have already cast ballots in the March 19th presidential primary. At this point in 2020, just 1,900 Chicago residents had voted. Chicago has 1.7 million registered voters.
I'm optimistic about early voting surging and having a good turnout.
If we want to have choice, we need to make the choice. It's kind of the way I look at it. So, if you wait till the general election, you've kind of given up your opportunity to make a decision about who's actually going to be there if you don't come out for the primary.
Here in the state line, if you live in Rockford, you can vote at the Maine Board of Elections office on 6th Street. If you're outside of city limits, you can go to your county clerk's office. Starting Friday, free at-home COVID tests from the U.S. government will no longer be available to Americans. The Department of Health and Human Services says the decision comes after a decline in case rates. However, the HHS will still provide tests each week to long-term care facilities, food banks, health centers, and schools. Administrators say people who placed orders for free at-home COVID tests on or before Friday will still receive them. The program may return in the future. There's some confusion over the Center for Disease Control's new COVID guidelines. The CDC says it's dropping its recommendation for COVID-positive people to isolate for at least 5 days. Instead, if they've been fever-free for 24 hours and aren't feeling sick, they can return to work or school. Now, healthcare providers are reporting an uptick in calls from COVID-positive patients unsure whether they should be isolating. Some doctors say there could be a new surge in cases from people not taking the proper precautions after testing.
I don't want to necessarily send, though, the signal to the general public that somehow we now think that you are no longer capable of spreading this disease just because it's been 2 or 3 days.
That person, he or she, should still be wearing a mask. If they're not, I would encourage them to do so.
New studies are also examining how long COVID could develop. One report from Cambridge University pinpoints low iron levels after infection as a probable cause. Medical experts say getting COVID-19 increases the risk of autoimmune inflammatory rheumatic diseases for up to a year later. That's according to a new study from South Korea, which shows the worse the COVID infection is, the greater the risk it becomes. Researchers say patients recovering from severe COVID should keep an eye out for symptoms including joint pain or swelling. Millions of dollars in grant money is going to help feed those in need across the state. Nearly $29 million is being distributed to the Northern Illinois Food Bank and other Illinois food providers. The Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement will allow the state to buy food directly from socially disadvantaged farmers. It will then be distributed to food banks and other nonprofits. An Illinois girl makes her yearly special delivery to police officers. Brooklyns operated lemonade stands for over the last 3 summers to pay for Girl Scout cookies that she then delivers to several police departments. This year, she delivered 175 boxes to police officers in the Peoria area. Her mom says they really appreciate her efforts.
They enjoy their cookies and they enjoy seeing her because there's not a lot of kids that are interested in having anything to do with them. So we like to show our support, and she loves finding new friends in blue.
This is the 3rd year she's delivered cookies to police officers. President Biden gears up for his State of the Union address. Up next, advisors say the speech will help calm voters' concerns, but Republicans remain skeptical. And coming up at 6, a local elementary school unveils a new addition. Administrators say their gymnasium will be used for more than just classes.
Well, we didn't make it into the 70s this afternoon, but those numbers still made it into the 50s with some sunshine. The above average warmth does continue, but there is a little drop in the temperatures as we look towards the weekend. Find out when that occurs and when we warm our numbers right back up. Coming up in the First Warn forecast a little later.
President Biden is preparing for his State of the Union address on Thursday. White House officials say he'll speak on what they believe are top concerns for Americans. Washington correspondent Jesse Tenor previews the speech and how Republicans plan to respond.
President Biden is back at the White House after a full weekend of State of the Union prep.
You'll hear me on Thursday.
While the president is keeping the contents of his speech close to the chest, the White House on Tuesday teased a number of new economic actions he plans to announce.
You'll hear him really call on congressional Republicans to join him.
Daniel Hornung with the National Economic Council says President Biden's tax proposals would reward work, not wealth.
To make sure that we don't have a tax system where some billionaires are actually paying a lower average tax rate than firefighters and teachers.
Hornung says the president will also take new steps on housing to increase the supply and lower closing costs.
That's a big issue as interest rates have gone up.
The White House says President Biden will also announce more efforts to ban junk fees, the surprise charges that often pop up for tickets, hotels, even internet and cable bundles.
We've all been seeing these creep across the economy.
But Republicans, like Tennessee Congressman John Rose, say voters are less concerned about junk fees than rampant crime.
In major cities across this country, organized retail theft has claimed more than $100 billion in property.
Crime in the economy, along with the crisis at the border, will likely be part of the Republican rebuttal to the president's State of the Union address. Alabama Senator Katie Britt will give it. In Washington, I'm Jesse Tenor.
A quiet, cooler day here in the state line. Coming up after the break, Candace tells us about our chances for some showers later this week.
Now, your first warned weather forecast from Chief Meteorologist Candace King.
Well, things are much more quiet tonight than what they were this time yesterday, as there were numerous severe thunderstorm warnings, even a couple tornado warnings for the area. High pressure building in, leaving us nice and quiet. We take a live look with our SkyTrack camera here over downtown Rockford, looking to the east. Cloud cover moving to the east as well, along with that cold front. Did bring a drop in temperatures, but not a dramatic drop, as our numbers still managed to make it into the 50s here this afternoon. Kind of a recap of what we had yesterday afternoon and evening. A lot of hail reports with a lot of the thunderstorms, but there were a couple tornado warnings, and the only one reported tornado we had out near Pearl City, a very, very, very brief spin up on the ground for 15 seconds. That was it. Tornado there southeast of Pearl City in southwest Stevenson County. Of course, that was the storm that moved across the county into Winnebago and then eventually did prompt a tornado warning in Rock County and Walworth County. Now, there were a lot of concerns that there were some additional tornadoes that had been reported in and around Durand, moving to the east and northeast and even up in southern Wisconsin in Walworth County. And while there was a confirmation of a very brief spin-up tornado there in southwest Stevenson County, that'll go down as an EF unknown because there was no damage reported with that. The tornadoes that had been reported a little further to the east, actually known as gustnadoes. So what exactly is a gustnado? Well, when you have a parent thunderstorm, anytime you get a tornado, that is going to come and be attached to the actual storm itself. So you have a lowering, which is known as a wall cloud. You sometimes are able then to get a funnel cloud with that, and that's where you have a tornado. When you have a strong outflow dominant thunderstorm, which is what a lot of those were yesterday, you get a lot of wind coming in, or outflow wind. Along the leading edge of that outflow, you get these little eddies or kind of little spins that develop. So when you look at this, compare it to radar, it sometimes can be mistaken as a tornado visually looking at it. But when you make that comparison to the radar, where the spin and rotation is located, where you have your conditions going on in the environment, and then you look to, is that just down around the ground, which is exactly where we had some of that spin taking place? Is it kicking up the dirt, or are we seeing that connection to the cloud? So what we had there in Durand and even Walworth County, known as a gustnado. So sometimes that can be quite confusing when you look at it just with the naked eye, but there's also some other additional factors that we look at to really try to help kind of determine that. As far as things go for tonight, no severe weather. Might see some fog. 50 for our weather watcher Terry down in Genoa, northeasterly wind at 13 miles per hour. Here's the fog that comes in for tonight, but it will clear out as we head through tomorrow. We maintain that northeasterly wind, so I think temperatures today going to be very similar to what we had out there this afternoon. Tomorrow night, a little more cloud cover builds in. We'll see a chance for some rain return, however. Once we get into Thursday night, then into Friday, good chance for some rain showers coming up Friday afternoon. Temperatures will drop into the 40s as we head through that time, but it looks like our numbers will climb back into the 60s as we head into next week.
All right, thanks, Candace. Wisconsin next with sports. Byron's basketball team's getting ready to head to the state tournament. They have some helpful advice to prepare them.
Now sports with Sports Director Scott Lever.
We are approaching the final weekend of the boys high school basketball season, and the Byron Tigers are still going. They're one of the final 4 teams in the state in Class 2A. They clinched the school's first trip to state in boys basketball last night with a super sectional win at Sterling against Chicago Latin. That was the Tigers' 30th win of the season. 2 more is all they need to capture the biggest trophy there is, the state championship trophy. The guys and coaches did mostly mental prep work today for state, studying films of their semifinal opponent, the Benton Rangers. And while this is the first trip to state for the boys basketball team, girls teams have gone to state 3 times in the last 9 years. So girls coach Eric Yearley has briefed boys coach Matt Hewells with some tips on how to go about this week.
Eric Yearley's just the perfect person to be on the other side, to support me in this, even before we had reached state, he was giving me his itinerary. I'm like, Eric, I'm not going to open this. I don't want to read it. I don't want to look that far ahead. But, last night when on the way home on the bus, I opened up his itinerary and I'm like, oh, this helped out a lot. And we kind of copy and pasted, transferred a lot of Bloomington normal stuff to Champaign stuff. And that's a big help for us because a lot of the times of the games are very similar. So it kind of helped us build a plan.
The Tigers' semifinal game is scheduled to start at 3:45 Thursday afternoon. Fighting Illini still have a shot to tie Purdue for the Big Ten regular season championship. They'll have to beat Purdue tonight and then hope that things break their way again this weekend. The Illini and the Boilermakers will go at it at State Farm Arena at 6 o'clock. Purdue defeated the Illini in their first meeting in early January by 5 points. The Illini didn't have Terrence Shannon Jr. for that game. The Bears don't want to let cornerback Jalen Johnson get away on the free agent market. They've assured that by putting the franchise tag on him, and that means Johnson is guaranteed to make just under $20 million this season. This is the first time the Bears have used the franchise tag on a player since 2021 when they used it on receiver Allen Robinson. The Bears and Johnson's agent can still try to work out a contract extension that would make the franchise tag unnecessary. The Ice Hogs are having fun at practice this morning at the Riverview Ice House. That's the effect that a 5-game winning streak can have. The Hogs' last 2 wins came on the road last weekend against the 2 hottest teams in the AHL, Milwaukee and Grand Rapids. And there's more good news for this team. That story tonight at 9 and 10. That's sports. We'll be right back.
After such a busy afternoon and evening yesterday, it's kind of nice today to see your radar a little less colorful and quiet.
Yes, and things will be much more quiet the next couple of days. We've got some sunshine too and pretty comfortable temperatures when you think about it. No record warmth like what we've had the last couple of days, but our numbers still sitting above average. Today we made it to 55. Tonight we'll drop into the low 30s, but tomorrow morning I think there could be some fog. The first warning interactive radar brought to us by Rockford Auto Glass and More does stay pretty quiet here tonight. Temperature tomorrow up around 53. We'll keep with some cloud cover heading into Thursday. There is a chance for a shower or 2, especially late Thursday night. Better chance for rain coming in on Friday. That'll carry over into early Saturday, drying things out Sunday. Monday, we'll see another warm up here as we head into next week. Don't forget to set your clocks ahead before you go to bed. Saturday night into Sunday, daylight saving time begins this weekend.
Thanks, Candace, and thanks so much for watching. Have a good evening.